Howdy, all you delicious people. I'm here to review Summertime Rendering, episodes 1 through 4. So, first off, we have this kind of repeating day kind of time loop that resets eventually, kind of like the anime Erased, where we have a character that goes on to go into his younger self to try and fix things for the future. And I kind of like that idea. So when I was to go on and find out that this anime is to have existed, I thought it was just kind of rather interesting. Plus, this anime becomes this like Rubik's Cube of mystery to try to figure out and solve. So I just thought that that adventure was kind of fun. We would go on to have Anjiro, who is to be the main character here, face off against these entities called shadows. These shadows would go on and latch on to a certain people or person and duplicate, replicate, or doppelgang them, and then go on and try to kill said person and just take over their life. Kind of like the Invasion of the Body Snatcher or Body Snatcher thing. There was a later Poltergeist movie that also, I think, was to do it in like ghost form or something like that, where eventually they'd have these doppelganger like characters that would rip away their flesh and reveal that, oh yeah, I'm the bad guy. So when going through this anime, I would go on to try to decipher whether or not it was a simulation or if it was a real happening, or like what is really going on here. Because the more and more I go along in this show, I'm like, okay, like, give me a hint, please. Give me a clue. Like, have me go on and have me, like, not just throw the kitchen sink of ideas into this one, and give me some sliver of something that tells me exactly what this is, instead of just leaving me more and more to just be like, well, hey, we're just gonna just keep showing you this mystery and hope that you're gonna continue to care. But I'm just like, but I want to know what's going on in this world. Like, I want to know if definitively if it's not a simulation or it's a real happening. But anyways, so also I like the static, the glitch of this show. It's really cool to do that. So we have the shadow characters. The shadow characters go on and eventually become somebody and try to kill that some person, and then they go on and they are to also find other people and make shadows out of them also, like we see here. Eventually, after Mio is to go on and kill Tetsu, this sheriff or police officer, from behind uh, the shadow version of Mio, all of a sudden appears this shadowy figure that becomes Tetsu and is to try to figure out who Tetsu is and just takes over his life. So we find out that this is kind of like a either an alien invasion or a breakout of sorts, and this is to go on and just inflict upon the town and have to make a second guess who is to be human and who is to be shadow. So, and who should we trust? So we make our way further into these bit of episodes here, and Anjiro is to consistently get killed, and then the time resets. Anjiro, of course, is to go on and get a face full of bosom, and I apologize for the thumbnail of which that is to be, of course, just to be like, oh yeah, of course he's gonna put that visual in there. Yeah, like of course I am, because really I was just out of ideas of what to really put on there. Plus also I'm like, well yeah, if I'm gonna do something, I might as well do that. So very low hanging fruit, but of course it is, because I have to do certain things at certain times just for desperation and what have you. But also, like, I'm assuming that that would have been a visual that could have probably appealed to a number of people or appealed to no one. Anyways, so we make our way into Anjiro facing off against these shadowy figures, and eventually the more and more they start to figure things out. they come to find that Ushio, the girl that Anjiro had gone on to come back to town for this funeral for, they'll come to find out that she was not drowned, she was actually to be strangled. And so this girl was murdered. They also go on to come to find Shiori, which is to be this girl that's in shock, eventually will go on and become a shadowy figure herself and will go on to have a lot more dialogue, which is to make Ijori kind of suspicious of her, and then we come to realize, oh yeah, she'll eventually become a shadow. So the first early bit of episodes goes on to have Ijiro and Mio making their way to Shiori's home to come to find that eventually they make their way into the woods to find a secret agent-ish looking character called Shizuri or Hizuri that eventually gets the face in her bosom, goes on to eventually be killed in the forest by the Shadow Mio, and Shadow Mio goes on to grab Mio and has a gun to her, but then shoots Ijiro, and as Ijiro is to be dying, then the time resets. And so Ijiro is to just weirdly think that he is to just have been in a dream and it's deja vu, and he realizes how his dream was so similar to what's going on in his real life, because we always had that thing going on of second guessing, of not understanding why exactly all these things were to play out in a very similar like pattern in his dream to what's going on in his actual life. So, and Ijiro taking this time to just kind of like look around and be like, why is this all so the same? So we'll come to find out that Ijiro is eventually within these repeating days start to see that things are to play out very differently. And here's the one point I'm making here. So Ijiro is to go on and become this waiter at this cafe, and he has a person come to him and mention about how, like, hey, yeah, you asked me about the girl with the glasses and the big boobs, and I had gone on to finally know who you're talking about. And Ijiro was like, wait a minute, when did I ever go on and when did I ever talk to this guy? Come to find out, in some other repeating day, Ijiro is to have talked to this guy and asked him about this girl, and then all of a sudden we come to find out that every repeating day just starts to intersect with one another. That some things are to be kept, and then some stuff are to be drastically changed and not be the exact same. And eventually it just kind of plays in the story. Like we have Tetsu that ends up getting shadowed and is to be asking about the usual and is to have a completely different line of dialogue when eventually Tetsu is to be saved and not to be a shadow character, and is to go on and hand Ijori this cell phone and is to say that it's Ushio's cell phone for Anjiro to then have and try to figure out this girl's password, whether it's her birthday or what is it. So Anjiro is to continue to make his way through this here, and eventually goes on to reveal to So, the guy who had talked to him about the autopsy and how it felt just kind of strange, and goes on to reveal him everything. And then now we have this kind of more group together at this festival, and then we go on to reveal that Ushio is to be a person who may not have died, or is to be a person who is a shadow that is to bizarrely just be unique and different, whatever. And we possibly have Ushio that might be a traitor to her own kind. And so, like, everything is to go on and just kind of be very strange and very, like, weird to define of what's all going on within all of these episodes. But it also is rather interesting to see all of this all play out. It's also really interesting to see people review things of this show because there are some people that are to go on and talk about how underrated and how great it is. And I'm just to be like, like I could just take it or leave it. Like, if anything, I'm not like hugely invested in this show. Like, I'm just like, okay, this is kind of interesting. This is unique, but what the heck is really going on? It's kind of one of those shows. And when going on and having people just tell people, like, oh, yeah, just go on and just watch this yourself. Like, yeah, I would recommend just people doing that. So if you're not going on and if you're not explaining this show whatsoever and just telling people to just like, besides the whole very brief synopsis that anybody can go on IMDb and find, like, yeah, you're not really doing your job, which I'm sure you're doing very well at and you're getting paid for. But yeah, you're giving people nothing. You're giving people nothing. Um, how you can go on and how you can see how great it is, but you can't convince people why, just does not make sense to me. Like, then I can just go on and just say everything is shit or everything is great, and not explain at all why, and then just somehow just do really well. Just would be just like morally just like, well, why then do I have to watch any of this content? I can just say yay or nay and then just call it a day afterwards and just be like, well, like, there's another piece of content that I didn't watch, but I just gave my opinion upon it anyways. Whatever. So, with that said, let's push on into the breakdown of these episodes. Let's get into full on spoilers. It's surprising because, yeah, like, I got this stuff all done in a very quick, very brief like fashion, and I was surprised about that. So, because if anything, I'm just trying to push on and just going into just wanting to unravel what all is to be happening within the show more. But I'm to kind of question if I got everything, if I said everything, if I explained everything well enough. But if anything, I guess that's to just straight up be like, well, hey, good enough, I guess, because eventually I'll just push on into the cliff notes and just anything that I forgot about, I'll rattle off here. So with that said, thank you for going on and checking this out. If you want to go on and check out this anime because it seems to not be available on an actual platform, I will go on and give you an app called Hename. That's anime with an H. This is to be bootleg app. You can watch whatever anime that you've ever wanted to watch for absolutely free. There's no subscription. If anything, this isn't like Crunchyroll or any of those other things that are to go on and give you a subscription. This thing is for absolutely free. It does have ads, so yeah, you'll have to watch those. But if anything, yeah, you'll get this subscription thing for absolutely free and be able to watch whatever you want to. So with that said, let's go on and let's get into full on breakdown, spoilers, and what have you. Let me know in the comments below if you are to go on and like Summertime Rendering, or if you were to have gone on and never heard of this before, or whatever you want to go on and talk about it. If anything, I think a lot of people could go on and get this confused with Summertime Saga because eventually they may have heard of that title. And I have heard of it too, and kind of known what's going on within that story. And just find that to be like, well, hey, maybe this just sounds very awkward for me to even bring that up. But anyways, let's go on and let's get to my character list and every bit of breakdown of these episodes, and we'll go on and get into spoilers. So, spoiler time, spoiler time. It's about to having to spoil these episodes. Let me know in the comments below any anime that you may find to be intriguing or interesting or what have you, because eventually at some point maybe I will actually go on and watch it in the future. There is seemingly a large amount of anime that I'm going on and having real true interest in of covering, as well as also to have posted and had people pull of an anime list that will eventually be done in the future. there's a lot of things that I'm kind of juggling right now, as far as like my doings of day to day. But if anything, I may go still consisting out of my way to find other bits of content. Also, I'm always doing research. I'm always going on, and I'm always trying to find out more content, and eventually wanting to decide whether or not to justify reviewing it or not. So, with that said, let's pause here and let me get out all I need to get out, because without a doubt, I will go on and get to the more kind of monotonous, more maybe boring part of the review that I can understand if people want to go on and check out after this. But I do appreciate anybody going on and taking the time to watch any of these videos. Thank you for going on and doing so. Let me pause here. All right, so the first thing we see here is Ajiro on a boat. He all of a sudden is to look at his phone. He realizes that it's 11:07 and it's July 22nd. And then all of a sudden he's talking to Ushio. Ushio goes on to want to give Ajiro a gift, and then goes on to talk about how he's never really there as much as he used to be. And so Ushio is to go on and say to Ajiro, it's like, hey, make sure you try to find me. And Ajiro's like, what are you talking about? Like, what? And then all of a sudden, we then have Ajiro seemingly awaken and be face full of bosom. So, I think here that Ushio is to have been the prior Ajiro. I feel like Ushio was to have been the first day repeating person, and then for some odd reason, they had decided to kill her and have her become this shadow. And so now it's left to Ajiro to have this ability now. Also, I think that like so much about this was trying to decipher and figure out whether this is a simulation, like whether or not it's like Jake Gyllenhaal's source code, whether it's to go on and be like Tom Cruise's Edge of Tomorrow. Like, what is this to go on and actually be? Like, is it to be an afterlife? Like, I'm throwing everything of kitchen sink of trying to decipher this, as well as also to remember the later half of Poltergeist, where they go on and they rip away their flesh and they reveal that they're to go on and be these doppelganger characters. So, but if anything, back to our story here. So, Faithful of Bosom, Anjiro goes on and is to be very apologetic, and the next thing we see is that Anjiro is to be in a separate part of the ferry, and he's standing to just kind of wait for this ferry to just be at a point where he can get off of it, with this huge red face palm upon his head, mentioning that he had gone on and gotten slapped from that girl that he had just been uh, bosomed by. So, or had bosomed into her. Anyway, so Anjiro makes his way onto the pier, and all of a sudden we have this bike coming into frame here. We find out that this is Mio. Mio is going on and saying to Anjiro, welcome home, and goes on to eventually further make her way into riding this bike on this hill, and eventually realizes that she can't stop the bike because we'll find out that her brakes have been tampered with. So Mio goes flying off of her bike into the water of the pier, and Anjiro grabs his hand out to rescue her. And Mio talks about how salty the water is. So the two of them make their way back home, and Mio is asking Anjiro about how it is where he's at now. And Anjiro's like, well, I don't really go out much. Off in the distance, we see Hizuru, the girl who had gone on to gotten a face rammed in her bosom, be in the background, and she's going on and she's making a phone call. At some point, I hope that this show focuses on her, but eventually, we'll just have to wait to see whenever we get some kind of more information from this woman. And hopefully, they really put a lot of effort into that. So we cut to Ushio, uh, who is at her funeral dead. And Ojiro is going on and watching over this funeral. We have them place a picture into her grave, and then we go on to have this girl who's known as Shiori that had been close to Ushio as she died, and they go on and they mention that. All of a sudden, a guy named So thrusts his way onto Anjiro, and with tears in his eyes goes on to mention about how he was to try to save Ushio, and he gives her CPR. We find that out in other episodes. And so is to say to Ojiro, it's like, well, hey, if you want to go on and if you want to hit me, it's okay, go on and do so. And Ojiro's like, no, it's fine. So the two of them go on and they start talking about Shiori, about how she is to be in a state of shock, and how she goes on and she doesn't talk to anybody. That'll play into the later episodes when Ajori goes on and speaks to Shiori and finds out that she's just starting to continue to talk to him, saying how he's just staring at her and how that's very weird. And eventually Ajori is like, well, hey, like, are you feeling better? Like, and then he realizes how dumb that dialogue is, but he just needs something to say to her because he has no idea what to say to her, as well as also realizing that she is to be a shadow and she's not like herself. So, and then eventually Shiori will be tempted to kill Ajori and have him become a shadow himself. But anyways, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. So eventually we have a priest or a guy who's working with the funeral procession. He goes on to eventually have everyone realize that they're going to go on and they're going to carry out the casket, and that they need assistance to be able to do so. The guy goes on and he turns to Ajori and ends up asking him, like, hey, will you go on and be one of the pallbearers, one of the people carrying out the coffin? And he's willing to do so. So cut to Ijiro and Mio, and they're back home and they're cooking food, and all of a sudden Elaine or Alan comes in. I'm not quite sure the pronouncing of this name. I'm assuming that this guy's to be kind of like the father character of this family, and because everything is not well defined. Like, there's also like, is Ajori and Mio, are they sisters or are they like adopted? What the heck is going on there? We also have Mio that goes on and says that Ushio is to be her sister, but then also Ijori is to say that Ushio is to be a friend of his. So I'm so effing confused of who these characters all are, because it doesn't exactly make a clear-cut bit of sense within the show. I'm so effing confused about why this family is to not clearly define so many effing things. I'm just so confused. Anyways, so we go on, and Mio is to mention how they're going to set a plate for Ushio to really say that this girl still has value to them, and they will still pretend that she's there. I would go on and I would have watched a video where the actors are going on and talk about Stand By Me, and they're putting together some tour where they're going on and talking about the film, and they say that they're to go on and every time have this fourth chair that's empty, that's just there just for River, who is to have been a character that they are to feel is to have been very important to the movie to them, as well as also Ron Ryder was to say that there should have been a chair for River, and he's not there. So, anyways, so we now have them eating, and then eventually they're going to go on and take showers or baths or whatever. And so now we cut to the outside of this home. We come to find that another Mio is to be outside of her home staring at her house as if this is a weird staring contest. So Tetsu is to go on and is to see Mio staring at her own house and find it very peculiar, and is to try to go on and keep talking to her as if she's going to eventually give him answers, which at some point we do just cut away from. We will come to find out in another episode that Mio was to have been a shadow character that is just stalking the actual Mio, and when Tetsu is to go on and continue to talk to her, Mio goes on and kills Tetsu, and then Tetsu becomes a shadow figure of that guy. So, Ajiro goes on and gets a phone call. It's from So. Anjiro is to go on and be in his room and is to have this conversation of So. So, in the funeral, they go on and they mention the autopsy, and they thought it was kind of strange. But if anything, So goes on and mentions that the autopsy had revealed that Ushio had not drowned, that if anything, Ushio had been suffocated. And there were marks showcasing that upon the girl's neck, defining that, yeah, she had gotten suffocated. So, Ajiro, after going on and getting that bit of information, it's like, okay, like, so there's something just strange going on here. So next we cut to Ajiro opening his door, and Mio is right there. Mio goes on to mention about Ushio possibly getting killed also. And Ajiro's like, wait a minute, like Ushio had gotten killed? Like, have you gone on and told anybody about this? And Mio's like, no, I haven't. And she's very secretive about it. But Mio goes on and hands Ajiro over Ushio's necklace. And eventually it'll play into the bit of episodes later on when we come to find out that that Ushio, her shadow self, is to have the same necklace. So, anyways, we then cut to a past Ajiro giving Ushio this necklace for the first time, saying how important it is, and Ajiro cries after that in current time, remembering the necklace. So, we now cut to Ajiro and Mio that is at this restaurant, or this cafe, and their father is to be this chef because he's in this chef uniform. So Ajiro is going on and waiting tables, and here's where we go on and we have the character goes on and mentions about the like, well, hey, yeah, you told me about before about the girl with the glasses and the big jugs. Yeah, like, and Ajiro's like, well, are you sure that was me that was going and mentioned to you about that? And he's like, yeah, like you told me about that. And so Ajiro's like, okay, all right, I don't remember this, but so Ajiro is to go on to make his way to Tetsu, and Tetsu goes on to eventually just ask for his usual, which is like, okay, what the heck is that? So we have Mio that goes on and so Mio knows Tetsu's order and ask whether or not that Tetsu is to be coming for breakfast or not. So now we have Anjiro that's talking with Tetsu, and Tetsu is to mention about how Shiori's family has all of a sudden disappeared and how strange that is. And so now we cut to Ajiro and Mio. They're kind of talking off to the side here. And the two of them start to talk about how Shiori has been acting strange lately. And she's been acting strange ever since the accident. And the further and further that they start talking, all of a sudden a random guy called Nazu is to interrupt them and start talking about shadows, and just start talking about how people can get shadow sickness, and that there could be a possibility that a shadow had killed Ushio, or could have gone on and killed Shiori's whole family, and that's why they've all of a sudden disappeared. So, but also, like, they're writing off the whole shadow thing as some possible myth or legend, and it doesn't make any real sense of kind of what's going on here. Anyways, we push on to see a flashback of Ushio and Mio together. Then all of a sudden we cut back to Ajiro, and the two of them make their way to Ashori's house, to Shiori's house, and they try to call, or they try to press the doorbell, and no one comes to the house. All of a sudden they find in the woods that there's something moving there. They think that there's a possibility that what's moving in the woods could possibly be Shiori, and so they follow up on it because there's no one coming by the house or coming out of the house to say anything. So the two of them make their way into the woods to eventually further and further get lost, and all of a sudden they come to find Hizuri, who is to be having blood coming from her mouth, and she's dying. She has a bullet wound coming from her body. As Mio and Ijori get ever so close to this woman, all of a sudden there ends up being a bullet flying and going through Hizuru's brain and killing her. And the next thing we see is Mio's shadow grabbing Mio, gun to her head. And I'm like, okay, where did the gun come from? And we'll find out that eventually, when Mio is to have gone on and killed Tetsu, she ends up asking for the shadow version of Tetsu to borrow his gun, so that way she'll go on and she'll kill Mio. So, but back with what's going on here. The shadow version of Mio takes her gun and points it at Ajori, pulls the trigger, kills Ajori, and then all of a sudden Ajori is to be woken up into the reset part of time. to get a face full of bosom and be face to face with uh, Hizuru again, and realize, hey, wait a minute, like I just seen this person and she was dead, but now I'm seeing her here. This must have just been some kind of weird dream. Hizuru is to also mention about how, yeah, like you're having some weird dream and like what the heck was going on. So we now all of a sudden have Ijori that is weirdly going on and being in a part of time that he wasn't there for. We have Ijori that is somehow in the area of when Ushio had died and had things replay out. We see that So is going on and giving Ushio CPR, and eventually then back cut to Ijori. He's getting a face full of bosom, and then Hizuru is mentioning about how he was to have gone on and had these bad dreams. So Ijori is to go on and kind of replay what all of which that was within that dream of his, what he thinks is a dream, but it was a real just time loop. So Ijori goes on to make his way through his phone and sees this picture of this mystery novel and starts talking about it. So as Hizuru is making her way from off the ferry and she makes this phone call, we then see Ijori that is on the pier, and he eventually comes to find Mio again at saying welcome home, hey, how's your trip? And Ijori's like, man, this is very much the same as the day before, even to the same exact detail of when Mio is to fall off the pier and goes flying into the water, she's even wearing the exact same panties. So Ajiro goes on and thrusts his hand in the water for Mio to grab. And here is where Ajiro realizes that Mio's brakes were cut. Because eventually Mio is to mention how she couldn't stop. So Ajiro makes his way back home to be thrust in the arms of Alan or Elaine. And the guy goes on to mention how tall he is now and how much thinner he is also. So they make their way to the funeral, and we go on and we never have Anjiro that speaks with So again and is to find out about the whole choking thing instead of the drowning. They never bring that up again. So within the funeral, we then again get another flash, and someone goes on and mentions about the whole like, hey, this is a funeral, don't take pictures. And Anjiro goes on and finds Shiori again, and she comes in with her family. And then again, Ijiro ends up getting grabbed by So, and kind of the things start to repeat again. So then we cut to Ijori and Mio back at home, and they're having dinner together. And so Mio is going on into the shower, and Ijiro is to be outside just trying to figure out. He feels sick. He's so confused. Because he wanted to take a breather after dinner because his family was going on and looking at him like, hey, you look quite pale. What's going on? So he's like, well, I think I just need some fresh air. So he goes outside. When Ajiro goes on outside, we have Mio out there, and it's not the human Mio, it's the shadow Mio. So Mio's shadow is to be outside staring at the house, and so Tetsu is to be walking by and is to say to Mio, hey, like, what are you doing? Like, are you having a staring contest for your house? Like, what the heck is going on? So the more and more that Tetsu starts poking at Mio and starts asking her things, all of a sudden, for his troubles, Tetsu ends up getting a knife and getting killed. All of a sudden, from behind Mio ends up becoming yet another shadow that becomes Tetsu and takes the form of him, like we see here in this photo. So Tetsu is to go on and figure out everything, or Tetsu's shadow is to go on and figure out everything that he knows about Tetsu and becomes him. And Mio is to ask for Tetsu's gun because feasibly it's like she needs to go on and she needs to take this gun so she can go on and kill eventually Mio and become her. So, because eventually it seems that these people only have a certain number of days before they get killed and can't become the shadow of the person because that person is still alive. Anyways, so Anjiro is to have gone on and witnessed all of this, and eventually he's hiding off, hoping that they aren't going to spot him, and they do. There ends up becoming a knife into Anjiro's body. He ends up getting stabbed, and he's dying. Mio and Tetsu were to mention, like, well, hey, like, eavesdropping, isn't exactly polite, and it also would be met by a death penalty. And so Mio goes on and starts replicating Anjiro. And then all of a sudden, Anjiro, with his spirit, is to be looking on, kind of in a disembodied like thing, watching himself die. And then he gets to the point where he's going through this time wormhole where he's getting back to the reset point. The whole entire time, we have Ushio talking to him, telling him to be careful, and for him to take care of Mio, and he's like, what the heck is going on? So, we now get to the reset point, which is to be this time around, Ajiro being at the pier. Him going on and eventually seeing Mio make her way down with the bike on the hill, going on saying like, oh, welcome back, oh yeah, have a nice trip. So Anjiro at this point is so freaking confused. And eventually, since Anjiro realizes this time around that this is going to be a time looping thing, he this time around is to stop Mio from falling into the water. And so Anjiro braces himself and gets in front of the bike to stop her from going. And what ends up happening is Anjiro this time around ends up going flying, and he goes in the water himself, but he can't swim, so he's starting to drown. Mio dives in the water after him, so I'm like, God dang it, every single time this girl has to end up in the water anyways. So whatever she does, she'll always end up in the water. So we then cut to Hizuri, or Hizuru. And man, these names are kind of hard to pronounce. I'm sorry. I'm gone into so many animes where everybody has freaking challenging names. Hizuru is going on and having to be on a branch of a tree where she's hanging upside down. She's going on and calling somebody and mentioning about how like she really likes how she's hanging upside down because the blood rushes to her head. But if anything, she can think a lot more clearly, and that this guy should go on and think about doing this. Hizuru is going on and following Shiori, and we see her off in the distance. So we now cut to Ijiro. Ijiro is realizing that since this is a repeating day, that he's hoping that he can go on and save Tetsu this time around instead of having him be murdered. So Ijori is calling so that way he can make this false claim about this bar fight, forcing Tetsu to investigate this and realize that it's a false call, but at least he'll go on and at least he'll be alive. So Ijiro is to go on and have dinner with his family, and then is to go on and clear all of his storage in his phone because he's going to go on and go outside and take footage of the shadow version of Mio, so eventually he has something to give to his sister to prove to her that there are shadows that exist, because he's going to go on and tell Mio what's all going on, except for the whole entire truth. He's going to kind of leave some things close to the vest here. He's not going to tell her that he's on a repeating day because she'll just think that he's crazy. So we have Anjiro that goes on and looks in the mirror and finally starts to realize that his eye color is completely different. I guess that should be more of concern to him, but he just treats it as Tuesday. It's very strange. So Anjiro is to have to question whether or not that Mio is really in the shower or not, or if she's outside. So Anjiro has to go on and thrust his way into the bathroom to find Mio actually just cleaning herself off and getting into the tub and just being weirded out by Anjiro and calling him a perv and all kinds of things. But he just needed to know if she was really in the shower or not, strangely enough. So Anjiro goes on and gives Mio this phone that has evidence of her shadow self watching over the house and goes on to explain everything. So the next thing we see after this is that Anjiro makes his way to the Koba Mart and comes to find that the mart is strangely closed. And all of a sudden, Anjiro bumps into Mrs. Shiomi, and Miss Shiomi is realized, like, well, yeah, this store shouldn't be closed. So they go back around to the back entrance. They go inside the house and they start looking around uh, for anyone in the home. They start calling out for anybody, and no one answers. Ijori goes on and finds that there is some weird burn marks or some weird black marks onto not only the ground near the TV, but also on the couch. Ijori is like, well, it seems that somebody in this family would have had to have gotten shadowed now, didn't they? So that's why they've all disappeared in a strange way like this. So Ijori continues to make his way into the home and just finds out how it's a lot more weird, how there's certain things that are to kind of be put together like they are, and how the TV is still on, but no one's home. It's very strange. So Ijori makes his way up the stairs and comes to find Shiori, and it seems that Shiori now is to have quite a bit of dialogue. She's continuing to talk to him, and he just feels estranged by her now because she's going on and talking so easily. The more and more we come to find out that Shiori is to actually be a shadow, and that she's going to go on and duplicate Ajiro soon and kill him. But eventually, Miss Shiomi interrupts their conversation, and then Shiori disappears. So now we have Anjiro and he's thinking about Hizuri, about it could be possible that this girl could have some information about what's going on, and that he needs to go and try to figure out if he can find her anywhere. So this is where Anjiro goes on and finds this guy and asks her about, like, well, hey, have you seen any girl around? She has glasses, big huge boobs, like black hair, like. And so this is where, like, everything of what's going on within this bit of time just kind of intersects and just has its give and takes. So we then cut to a festival that is getting put together here. Anjiro and Mio are putting away their aprons, and then all of a sudden Tetsu comes in and is to be upset with Anjiro about him following this fake crime. But eventually, after Anjiro realizes that Tetsu is to have a completely different line of dialogue because he's a completely different person, Tetsu is to go on and hand over to Anjiro the cell phone that was Ushio's, and maybe this is to unlock some secrets that can help Anjiro figure out what's going on. So the next thing we see is So making his way to the restaurant. Anjiro feels that he can trust So, so Anjiro takes So with him and confesses everything to him except for, of course, the whole repeating day thing, because this guy will not buy that. Anjiro wants to keep things close to the vest. So Anjiro tells So about the whole shadow thing and that he has proof. And it seems that So is going on and believing him, which is kind of strange. But then also, eventually there is the whole like thread of like, well, hey, how can we trust if you're a shadow or if I'm a shadow? So eventually they come up with this whole mountain Mesopotamia thing that they have to go on and say to one another to reveal that they are who they are. So we then cut to after all of this, and Ajiro and Mio are in the rain, and Mio is going on and asking Ajiro, it's like, well, hey, how long are you going to be here for? And Ajiro goes on to say, it's like, well, I've only thought about being here just for the funeral and then coming back. And Mio is to say, it's like, well, I hope that you would go on and decide to stay forever. And so here is where Mio goes on and hands Ajori the necklace. And of course says that this was Ushio's. So as Ajori makes his way back home, he's trying to figure out the passcode of Ushio's cell phone, and he can't figure it out. All of a sudden, So comes in and is like, hey man, why aren't you dressed yet? Because, yeah, the guy's in his underwear. Also, So goes on and says, hey, Mountain, and Ajori can't figure out what the comeback was. And so is like, hey man, like, don't you remember Mesopotamia? And he's like, well, yeah, of course you won't go on, of course you won't remember that. And we get to a point where everybody goes on and starts saying the word mountain, and then the guy has to answer with Mesopotamia. So I guess that is kind of an interesting thing for them to all figure out who they really are. So, So's sister Tokiko is to be coming into the door and realizing that this guy has underwear on. It's like, hey man, get dressed. And Tokiko is to kind of be fixing Mio's dress. And so after they do the fist bump, after they do some light fisting, they make their way to the festival. And and we have Mio that's taking in some cotton candy, and Ajiro and So are talking to one another. And they're talking about how So is going to go on and protect Mio for whatever happens, and that he feels it's his fault for letting Ushio die, so he just feels responsible. So this whole time we have Anjiro, and he has this ice cream, and eventually, as Mio and Tokiko make their way back to Anjiro, he realizes in his hand that the ice cream is melting. So we have at a point here where whereas they're looking through the festival and all these people are just having a good old time, we then cut to the credits, and we have Anjiro that kind of separates from the pact here and goes by the water. And here's where he goes on to find out that Ushio is all of a sudden still alive in her swimming suit, and she appears in front of Anjiro and she hugs him, and all of a sudden we have Anjiro realize that, hey, wait a minute, Ushio, like, you have your necklace. I have it with me. Why is it that you have this necklace? So Anjiro is to mention that Ushio is dead, and she's like, well, am I dead? Like, like I remember I couldn't breathe. Like I remember this and I remember that, and so she's trying to convince him that she's alive, and like all of this is very much confusing. So Ushio, the further and further she talks to Anjiro, eventually she goes on and she tells him how much she loves him. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't know if I'd go on and I'd be so sure about if I'm loving or in love with this girl when I don't know if she's dead or alive or not, or if I don't know if she's a shadow, or if she's a real person, if she's a real girl, not Geppetto style. So we would go on the more and more with this dialogue, as it seems to go on for forever. And while fireworks are going off in the distance, and Ushio is trying to go on and realize that, like, hey, the festival's going on, I can go and have fun. And Anjiro is pulling Ushio to the side and be like, no, 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 no. You need to hide away. Like, no one can see that you're still alive because so many people will have questions and someone could recognize you. And yeah, a lot of problems could happen here. So while Anjiro is to be with Ushio, just kind of to be held here, uh, we have the group that is going on and trying to call Anjiro here, and is to be asking him, like, hey man, where are you at? Like, what's going on? Like, are you okay? Plus, also, Ushio goes on and punches Anjiro in the stomach, and he falls over. So while Anjiro is on this phone call with the group, Ushio grabs the phone out of his hand and starts talking to Mio, and Anjiro grabs the phone back. It's like, hey, you shouldn't have been talking to her. And then Mio is to just find that bit of conversation so very weird. So So we push on here, and Anjiro makes his way back to Mio and gets back with the group. And they have this whole like kind of burning pallet ceremony thing where this huge fire, and here's where we go on to have So that pulls Mio aside and confesses his love for her, but eventually this will all be met with Mio going like, yeah, like I don't really feel the same way about you, so like this is really nice that you tried to tell me all this, but yeah, no. Like face palm, like no. No. So eventually, while this is going on, Anjiro is talking to Tokiko and mentioning, yeah, like So really does like Mio, but Mio doesn't feel the same. Mio is to like somebody else, and Mio told me who that was. And Ajiro's like, wait, what? And then Tokyo is like, or Tokiko is to say, yeah, maybe I shouldn't go on and maybe I shouldn't say more. And it's like, yeah, maybe you really shouldn't. So now all of a sudden they're met by Ushio. Ushio makes her presence and just starts talking to the group, but she's wearing this like Halloween mask. This very like plastic, very like, oh yeah, this is just some other mask that she's wearing. And she's going on and she's talking to everybody, and the further and further she talks, everybody finds her voice to be familiar or they recognize it. And plus also this girl has really long blonde hair, so it's really tough for her to just hide who she really is. So Ushio does go on and take off her mask and reveal that she is Ushio, and she's like, "I'm sorry. Like, I know I was supposed to be in hiding because I talked to Ojiro, but like, I had to go on and I had to see you guys. I had to talk to you. I've missed you." So Mio is to say how Ushio is to not be who she really is, that she's possibly a shadow or a monster, and for Ajiro to get away from her. And we then would go on to have Ajiro that is to be grasping onto Mio, and he's grasping onto her in a very like controlling way, because we find out that this specific Ajiro that is now with the group is to not actually be the normal human Ajiro, that this Ajiro is to be the shadow version of himself. So we find out why that is through some moments here. We come to find out that Ajiro is to be interrupted by Mio, who has all this blood on her and has a knife. And so Anjiro goes on and grabs onto the real Ajiro and goes on to hold him down. We come to find that there's a lot of burn marks or a lot of blackened figures all onto the ground, so a lot of people had started to become shadows here. And we slowly but surely have Mio that is to have a shadow version of Ajiro appear from behind her, but this Ajiro is to be wearing a different set of clothing. So Anjiro is to figure out that this guy is to be his shadow, and Anjiro is to start to realize, hey, like, I should definitely go on, and I should be worried about a shadow kind of taking my information and knowing more about me, because at some point he'll go on and he'll figure out about the whole Mesopotamia and all these things that he should know about me. So if anything, Ajiro should be worried if there's ever going to be a shadow version of himself. So eventually the two of them go on to at some point figure out that Anjiro is to be a character that is on a time loop. They do figure it out. And so Mio is to go on and kill Anjiro, but uh the shadow version of Anjiro says, "Hey, no, wait, don't kill him. I think he's on some time loop. He's going on to figure out how to stop us, and if anything, like he'll have to go on and figure out how to be able to use his abilities to be able to best figure out how to defeat us. So, like, if anything, like he's to be the one that's trying to prevent us from doing what we're doing here. So Anjiro, the shadow version of himself, walks off here, and Mio is now going on and grabbing onto Anjiro and breaking his limbs so that way he won't be able to go anywhere. So eventually the next thing we see is a shotgun blast going into Shadow Mio's head. And we see that Sadaki, and of course we also see her lose her head completely. The next thing we see coming into frame here is Hizuru, and Hizuru is to kind of save Ajori here, and then we roll to credits. So we realize that Hizuru is to be kind of like Leon from Resident Evil, like in my opinion. Like this Hizuru is to probably be the one that knows what's going on. It is going to be like the agent that is going to try to stop this whole thing, and is to be the investigator of all of what's going on. And Ijiro is to go on and eventually, at some point, I hope, reset with her and then just start talking to her and try to figure out how to solve all this. I'm assuming at some point. Because, yeah, I just don't think that Izuru, with his broken limbs, could be able to go on and be able to keep trying to defeat these shadows. Like, if anything, Ijiro may go on and tell Hizuri to just kill him so that way he can go on to a reset, and then he'll go on and be able to figure this shit out, is what I'm hoping. But if anything, with that said, I think that wraps up this. Weirdly enough, this took a way briefer amount of time than I thought it was going to be taken up with. I think I really just cut through a lot of this stuff and cut it in half. So if anything, I hope that this is worth it to do, but if not, then oh well, this is just another piece of content that I put out for this day. Yeah, so this is to be those 4 bit of episodes. Yeah, I really crammed and threw a lot of stuff out. So with that said, if you felt that I didn't cover enough of this, go into the episodes. Again, you can check this out on Haname, and you can watch this yourself, because eventually it seems that is to be the thing that every other reviewer is to tell people to do. Yeah, just watch it yourself. Just Google it. Yeah, just don't go on and hear anything I have to say, because feasibly you'll just go on and you'll just figure it out. Like, I guess you have to go on and just get some kind of clickbaiting bit of terms that'll get you interested in the anime if you weren't. But if anything, those reviews didn't really help me. If anything, they just kind of left me more in the dark to just have to watch this show and be like, oh, okay, this is what's going on. Because so many other reviews just kind of very much left me in the dark of what this show is actually about. And that's the thing that is so annoying, is just like someone can just go on and just say how good or how great or how shitty something is. And then I go on to whatever the thing is, and I'm just like, okay, I don't feel like that at all. So it's just like, man, are people just going on and clickbaiting people into like, well, hey, like I know that this thing is popular, so I can say whatever I want in a video, and people will watch it. Is that the thing now? I just don't get it. But also, I feel that there's a lot of times also where I'm very long winded in my videos, so that's the biggest problem that I have. Is I just like to just go into the whole thing and just do it all out, and then just do these videos by the end where I'm just like blabbing and ranting and whatever. Just because like it just gets something off my mind, then I'm just too. Plus, also it's just the victory lap of like, thank God this is done, and thank God that I can just have this uploaded now. Now that I feel that I'm fine with just having this to be finished. Plus, also I had gotten at ever so close to finishing this before, and then the video cut out because that just tends to happen so often, more so than it should. It just eats up so much of my time. And I'm like, okay, I have to do this all over again. And so it just kind of gets to the point where I just kind of forget about what all I'd gone on to say, and I feel like I've probably left out so much shit within this review. Uh, but I'm just have to go on and just be fine with like, okay, like I don't remember what all I've said at this point, so I think that this is going to be okay enough for me to just have to be satisfied or fine by it because I don't know any better. So with that said, thank you for going on and listening to this guy rattle on and talk for too long of a time. But at least this is way shorter than any of the other anime reviews that I've done so far lately, and quite often shorter than any of the videos that I've been doing altogether. So that'll be nice. Maybe I'll go on after this and hope to try to dive into some other content. Like, I'm also going to try to get back into working out because since I finally am to feel a little bit better after dealing with pneumonia for so long and realizing that like I'm starting to really gain back quite a bit of weight now because I haven't been exercising on a regular basis. Yeah, I'm tempted to go in back into working out so that we can go on and get to some kind of better looking shape because I'm starting to realize that I'm starting to get a little fat, and I'm just kind of getting a little bit of like I don't like how I'm looking in photos, like I don't like how I'm looking, so I need to just kind of slim down now so I can look better. As well as also like my face is just all like just beat up right now. Just because of everything I've been going through. And so yeah, so I'm just trying to just look my best for every one of these things that I need to do as far as photos and all these things that I need to do for thumbnails and like I've gotten to a point right now where I've also kind of really heavily like prepared everything, which is kind of nice. So like I've really gone on to like prepare ahead of time of all my thumbnails. So all I have to do is just go into the content. I just have to watch the content and just go into it, which is really nice. Instead of having to after I watch it figure out what the thumbnail is, figure out what the background is, and then kind of also need to fuse all the clips and all the things that are on Facebook. That's what also takes me the effing longest to do this content every time. It's not the actual watching part, that's easy. If anything, it's just the stuff after the fact or even before the whole prep time of it all. That's what takes forever to have this stuff go out. As well as also, when I plan on actually watching this stuff, a lot of times it's at the worst possible time to where when I start doing the review, I'm so exhausted and so tired that eventually, like, I have to realize that I'm just like, man, I'm just yawning through the review how would I go on instead? And how about I just do this next morning? Or how about I just carve out a better time to watch this and then review it and get it all done in one day? So I'm just trying to figure out the best way to execute all this and figuring out the best way of trying to be consistent, even though also I'm making a lot of wild pitches. I'm going on and putting out stuff like this that I'm sure a lot of people have never heard of, as well as also I'm going on and shucking out stuff like Dan to Dan that no one gave a crap about. But I was just like, man, this show is so interesting, but no one cares. I was like, oh, well, that's too bad. Like, I was just kind of hoping that would go on for X number of subscribers that I have to have somebody just kind of interested in this content, even though um, it is to really just be like this really weird and goofy bit of content, but I thought it to be just so fun. So I just wanted to share that, and then no one cared. I'm like, well, all right, well, like I guess that is what it is. Like I can't win them all. I can't go on and have everybody always interested in every piece of content I do, even at a very small scale, which is fine. If anything, I like to have so many people vote on like Demon Slayer, and then to see like a whole day passing and then no one really cared, and then I was like, okay, so should I be upset about this? Should I not be upset about this? Should I just go on and just be like, well, people will get to it when they get to it? And then people did, and I was like, oh, okay, sigh of relief. To where I'm like, well, like, I don't really know how like people react to how I felt about the show, but I'm glad that people were to go on and check that out regardless. And maybe I hope that people will go on and check out this, or maybe we'll go on and just find this show to be interesting and maybe have it be something they want to look into. But regardless, this was maybe a piece that I might just end up being another one off, and then I'll just push on and just do other things. I have a huge number of projects that I'm going on and wanting to review soon that are going to be very different from one another. Um, there's not one yet thing that I found that I really want to go out of my way to continue. Like Zom 100 was one where I was like, man, I want to go on and watch this whole thing, regardless of how it ended. Whereas, like, there's a lot of stuff that I'm just like, I'll just do this and I'll just do this, and it's all different and it's all a different title and it's a different thing, and just trying to experiment and just kind of seeing if anything will be really interesting to people, or if there's going to be some way of me trying to figure out how to best sell these things. But either way, I'm going to go out of my way to just continue to just keep doing content and just seeing what works and obviously what doesn't. And hope for the best every day and just keep hoping that people will be still subscribe to the content, so want to go on and check this out. And then hopefully I'll correct some mistakes of the past also and cover some content that I was actually supposed to cover. But I don't know, I just don't think that it's going to end up doing well. But regardless, like I still want to kind of show people that, hey, like if you vote on something, I'm going to go on and I'm going to cover it eventually. I may not cover it today, but I will probably cover it tomorrow. So I'm going to try to get to it as soon as possible. So with that said, I'm going to get the heck out of here. Goodbye, everybody. Goodbye, everybody, because I've hugely ranted by the end of this and no one will probably care. But at least it's to be going on and be a lesser video than normal. So with that said, hopefully people may be more tempted to check this out just because it's a shorter video. It's a shorter video. So bye, everybody. Bye, everybody.